Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining me for another amazing episode of the Daily African Proverbs. My name is Simon Okelo and I am in Seattle, Washington, but I'm from Kisumu, Kenya originally. And I love doing the Daily African Proverbs every morning. We are now live on YouTube and we are also live on Clubhouse. And today I'm really privileged to be here with an amazing leader and also, just a wonderful mother figure for me in Seattle. Her name is Aline Ruth, and she's been doing amazing work here in Seattle, supporting especially the African and the Black community through, grant opportunities and just understanding how to work with the city of Seattle to benefit our community for years. So today, she's going to share with us what her thoughts are about today's proverb. And the proverb for today says, he who refuses to obey cannot command. After we listen to Aline's thoughts about this proverb, we are also going to talk about her story, what is it that continues to inspire her as a leader right now that came from her upbringing. And then we will talk about the Food Equity Fund that she's one of the managers for. Then after that, I want to hear, just questions and thoughts from a few people in the audience. So this is a good time if you're on Clubhouse that you can raise your hand and join us on stage. And, we come here in the Daily African Proverbs so that we can share these important African proverbs and gain African wisdom by the end of our conversation. So it means a lot that in the room we are joined by Jay Naidu, who is in South Africa and is, also a respected leader and the former Minister of Communication, when the legendary Nelson Mandela was the president. So thank you so much, Jay, for being here, and also Makuba from Cameroon, and Safoa. I think Safoa is from Ghana, and of course Ahadi and Mala and Hilda, and I also see Dr. MD Williams and Ingrid. Thank you all for being here with us. And if you are on YouTube, I urge you to just type your response to today's proverb while we listen to the amazing Lynn's thought about it. Again, the proverb says, he who refuses to obey cannot command. Aline, share with us your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Well, first, I just want to say it is a blessing to be here. I did not know it would be so emotional for me. I am so jealous of you, Simon, because you can say you're from Kenya. All I know is I am from Africa. I was born in Seattle, but I am removed from Africa. So it's a blessing to be here. It's really a blessing to be here. Let me say, I'm an English major, one of my majors in college, so I listen to every word. And what stands out to me is he who refuses to obey. If you refuse to obey, to me, it means you cannot command from someone else what you cannot or will not do for yourself. You wouldn't even know what obedience looked like if you refuse to do it yourself. And no one wants to follow someone who cannot do what they do. It's like if you're a supervisor, you need to be able to do anything that the people you supervise can do. So if you refuse to obey, you'll never be a good leader because you won't know what obedience looks like. I learned that the hard way. I always say I was raised by a Black mother, not African American, a Black mother. Her rule was absolute. You obeyed, no excuses. You obeyed. And when we were younger, we thought that was very harsh. It was loving, but it was harsh. But we learned from that is when I'm obeying, someone else is taking complete responsibility. So I learned how to do things piece by piece, little by little. I don't jump in the deep end of the pool all at once. You learn how to swim a little bit, you learn how to float a little bit. And I was always grateful once I grew up because through obeying, I matured slowly. I didn't do things that I wasn't ready for. And I shared responsibility. I was one of 9 kids. So my mother's rule was if she left an assignment and everyone was given something to do, if it was not completed when she got back, everyone was in trouble. Even if I had done my part, if my sister had not done her part, we were all in trouble. So through that, we learned how to work together, and we learned how to be collectively responsible for something. And I think that has really colored my life and has influenced my life in a big way. So thank you. I didn't know I was going to go first, but that is what it means to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I always ask my guests these questions first, and I agree that this proverb is about leadership. It's about how leaders are groomed, and also how even from a young age, how leaders influence other people around them. I'm a father of 3 girls, and I have an 7-year-old is almost 8. He'll be 8 in February. She'll be 8 in February, and she's so influential amongst her siblings. And so when you are sharing with us your story, it just reminded me that the way you're interpreting this proverb, the way you're describing some of your mom's rules and the ways that she expected you all to relate with one another, it just reminded me of how impactful you are as a leader. Being an African man who just moved to Seattle in 2010, organizing festivals to bring our people together, doing a lot of community work. But every corner that I make, I have to be told about Aline. Have you talked to Aline? Have you talked to Aline? Have you met Aline? And it got to a place where we were able to work together, and through your support, we were able to get funding for Kijiji Night. And I've learned a lot about how funding works in the city of Seattle and in this region since I connected with you. So I wanted you to just share with us, how you began this work, but also how your upbringing influenced who you are today.
That's really an interesting story. I was born in Seattle. Seattle was segregated at the time. Black people lived in one community, white people in another. I was born in the projects. We didn't own our home, and at that time, it was it was a very negative thing. When you went to school, you had a separate phone number, and teachers. My first grade teacher told me I'd never graduate from high school. She she said that she wouldn't teach, and she used the N word to read. It was right after the Supreme Court had desegregated the schools. And so I grew up under this cloud of you will never um, accomplish anything. However, as I said, I had a black mother. Every morning she would line us up. There were 7 of us at the time. I was the youngest of 7 at the time. She would line us up and she would say to us, and we call it the speech now, but she would say, never forget, you belong to the strongest race of people that ever walked the face of this earth. No one has stood what the black man has stood in the heat of the day. She'd say, you have one job. The only job you have is to advance the ball. Whatever you do today, from sun up to sundown, make sure that whatever you do honors the sacrifices of your ancestors. She said that to me every day of my life, every day that I was at home. And so we'd go out into school and come home and say, Mom, somebody called us the N word. She'd repeat the speech. We would go home, come back and say, Mom, we didn't get invited to somebody's birthday party. She would repeat the speech. So after a couple months, we'd come home from school and she'd say, how are you doing? Fine, fine, because we didn't want to hear the speech. But what she was doing was putting into us how important and how great we were. She was reminding us of what the world was taking from us. So we grew up, even though we were poor and we didn't have our own house and we lived in the projects. I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. I had 5 older brothers. If anybody picked on me, I just said, I'll tell my big brother on you. So I grew up with this sense of importance for a poor black kid in segregated Seattle. I just grew up thinking I could do anything. And I carried that forward, not in a cocky way, but in a way of knowing that I had what was in me to be great. And one of the things that my mother did at a very early age is she was a spiritual woman. She introduced us to God at a very early age. She was a praying woman. And so I just grew up with this thought that I could do and be anything. So when I started school, I was a good student, studied hard. Um, I went to inner city schools in Seattle, the poor schools, but I had black teachers. I had Caucasian teachers who believed that we could achieve. They did not lower the standard. They supported us, but they didn't lower the standard. You know, my parents eventually divorced, and so being from a quote unquote broken home wasn't a good thing. But I remember my teacher said, "You from a broken home, but you're not broken. Sit down here and do your work." You know, if we were hungry, our teacher would share lunch with us or give us lunch money, all of those things. There was being in a segregated community gave us a lot of support. We left our community and went out into a world that hated us and was against us, but we came back every night into a world of people who supported us and loved us. And there were doctors, there were plumbers, there was the maid, there was all of these people who were going through the same thing we were going through, but there was this collective energy to uplift each other and move forward. And I carried that with me. And one of the things that was always ever present on my mind was that the older black people would say to me, "You're the one." I'd say, "What does that mean?" "Oh, you're the one." They would say that to a kid. "You're the one who's going to carry us forward. You're the one. We're depending on you." I couldn't have gotten into trouble if I wanted to. Everyone knew me, knew my mother. And back in those days, any older black person could swat you, could spank you, then call your mother, and you'd get another spanking if you were misbehaving. So you had this collective energy to, to support you and to keep you on the right path. So I went away to college, went to a very exclusive private college, Seattle Pacific College. At that time, they didn't even know I was black till I showed up. But at that time, they didn't admit black students from the Seattle area. But they let me in, and it was difficult, very very difficult because they, really didn't want me there. But I, remembered the speech. I remember the speech. I worked 40 hours a week, graduated on time. I was on scholarship, repaid my student loan. But it was a blessing because while I was there, my roommate, who was a Caucasian girl, she lived um, up near the Canadian border. She was a farmer's daughter. They weren't wealthy, but they owned their own farm. Every every quarter, I was a couple $100s short all the time. Even though I was working, I'd go in to register and be on a payment plan, and they say, "No, you're good." Spring quarter of my junior year, I went in. I owed like $800, which in 1974 was like an astronomical amount. And the lady said to me, "Your father paid." And I said, "My father?" She said, "Yeah, don't you room with your sister?" This Caucasian man who had never seen a black person up close before I started rooming with his daughter had been paying what was left over on my tuition bill for 3 years. I could not believe it. It forever changed my relationship with people who didn't look like me. Because after 3 years at a school that was anti-black, I was just like, "Let me out of here. Take me to the black community. Never want to see anybody white again." So that really touched my heart and changed my opinion about things. As it turned out, graduating from South Pacific College was the turning point in my life. I applied for a job at the city of Seattle, and the job that paid the most was at the city council. At that time, black people who worked for the city were either gardeners, uh, janitors, or they worked in the kitchen. There was a restaurant in City Hall on the second floor. They were not given professional positions, but the city was trying to change things. So I remember the guy said to me, "Well, we'd like to have you. It's down to you and another person, but we want someone with a college degree," which let me know that he hadn't read my resume. And I said, "I did go to college." He said, "Oh, you went to the U?" I said, "No, I went to Seattle Pacific," which at that time had a reputation for being very hard on black people. And he said, "How long were you there?" I said, 4 years. So he said, "Prove it." I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He asked me for the phone number there. So I gave it to him. And at that time, Seattle Pacific had less than 2,500 kids and only about 25 black kids. So he leaves the room, he comes back, and he said, "You did graduate from there?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "The job is yours." Well, I worked at the city council for 10 years. And what was interesting to me is that I was the receptionist first, and then a very kind gentleman, white guy, Republican, offered me a job as his secretary, so I took it. And then he offered me the best job in his office as legislative assistant. I was scared to death, but I took the job anyway. And this is very interesting. The first thing we did was we hired an intern for me. That young man's name is Bruce Harrell. Bruce Harrell is was a student at the University of Washington. He became a lawyer. He came back to the city council. He was on the city council for, I think, 3 terms. He's now running for mayor. So the lesson is be nice to everybody, because he used to work for me. If he wins today, he's going to be my boss. So the lesson, young people, is be nice to everyone. You never know how other people are going to rise up. But through all of this, I always had the idea that wherever I was placed there by God. When I left the city council, I did some other things. I still work for the city. I did neighborhood planning. But 32 years ago, because I started working for the city in 1975, 32 years ago, I was transferred into the Department of Neighborhoods. I knew nothing about grants, but my department was eliminated. I knew nothing about grants. The neighborhood matching fund was brand new. And I was told, this is what you're going to do. And I thought to myself, boy, what a powerful thing to be able to give money to community. So I thought, I'll stay here a few years, see what I can do, learn about this grant program. And I always thought that I was placed there for a reason, and that was to make sure that our community, the Black community, got their fair share of resources. And I've probably done 3,500 projects, so I've been a project manager for 3,500 grants. And that's about right, because our department has done about 6,000, 7,000. So if I've been there 30 years and all of that, that's about the right number. But the one thing I always encountered is when I would go out and tell Black people about the grant opportunity, they'd say, oh, I can't write a grant. Didn't matter what their education level was. They just thought they could not do it. And I would always say, yes, what do you want to do? How much money do you want? How long is it going to take you? Who's going to help you? It's just that simple. So I've always thought that me working for the city was really God's plan. And I've been working for the city for 47 years. I could have retired after 30 years, but there is so much energy and there's so much work to do. And for better or worse, just telling the truth, opportunity is not equal. Opportunity is not equal. It has not been equal in Seattle. It hasn't been equal in Boston. It hasn't been equal in Portland. So there's nothing unique about that. Racism does exist. Culturalism does exist. Bias does exist. But there are certainly ways to address that if you're willing to speak out. And what I found out in my career with the city is that not only do you personally have to be willing to do the right thing yourself, when you're in the space, when you're in the room, when things are happening around you, you have to be willing to speak up. Because one of the things that happens is that once you are let into the room and you have opportunity and you're surrounded by people who don't look like you, sometimes they want you to sign off on something that isn't right. They expect you to just be quiet. It may not be, the situation may not be totally fair, but there's pressure on you not to speak up. And I guess I learned a long time ago that that's not me. That's not me. That's not my role. And that's true in any situation. It's not just true in the city of Seattle. It's not just true in New York. It's true in any situation. If you're a person of color, specifically a Black person, when you have an opportunity to speak on behalf of others, you have to. You have to, because there are so few people in that space. And when you don't, it does more harm than good. Because sometimes people really haven't thought about how what they want to do affects you. I'll give you a perfect example. When I started doing grant work and I started working with the African American community, I knew that helping people from 8 to 5 was never going to work. The people that I knew who could do this kind of work did not have the kind of job where they could take 15 minutes or even half an hour to talk to you from 8 to 5. They worked at Boeing, so they were on an assembly line. They worked for Kenworth, they were on an assembly line. They worked at restaurants. They had the type of job where they weren't sitting at a desk. And so I started out by giving people my home number. I gave people my cell number when I got it. I would answer the phone evenings, weekends, never Sunday morning because I was a Sunday school teacher, but I just made myself available. People thought that was just that was just wild and crazy. And I said, no, if you meet people where they are, it's not fair to offer someone an opportunity that they can't reach. It just isn't fair. And I remember once I was interviewed by a TV station many, many years ago. And they were asking me, how is it that, you're able to work with community? How is it you're able to do it? And I told them, I give them my phone number and I said, I only have one rule. Don't call me from 7 o'clock to 7:30 unless you have the answer to the final Jeopardy question, because I like to watch Jeopardy. So I said, if you call me, I'm going to keep you on the phone. I'm going to make you give me that answer. But other than that, you can call me. People thought that was really funny. But now that the city is being more intentional, and now that we've advanced a little bit, because you can't change a culture all at once. You have to pivot a little bit at a time. And so now, unfortunately, it took, the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and many, many others to kind of focus Black Lives Matter. It's taken a lot of social change where we are now at the point where I think the city of Seattle is reaching out in a very intentional way from the top down, not just from the bottom up. And so now that that's happening, we're doing evening office hours. We're doing all of this innovative stuff that I've been doing for 30 years. Just, let people call you when they can call you. And when I give people my home phone number or my cell number, they say, oh, I don't want to bother you. I said, well, if you don't, you'll be the only one who doesn't. If you need my help, if you need help filling out a grant, if you have a question and it's on Saturday and that's the only day you're off, why wait until Monday on a day when you're not going to catch me? Call me, get the answer that you need. If I'm available, I'll answer right away. If not, email me and I'll let you know. Because I have children, I have grandchildren. I'm a grandmother and a mother, so sometimes I'm baking cookies or I'm chasing after my grandkids. But I just feel like my life has been God breathed, and I have been placed in positions to do certain things, and I take that seriously. I take it very seriously. There's another proverb. It's actually in the Bible. It says, "To whom much is given, much is required." And I believe that I have been blessed. I look back on my life and I realize that there's friends of ours who survived living in the projects and growing up the way we did. We have survivor's guilt because so many were lost. So many were lost to violence, to drugs, to lost hope, lost opportunity. So I take it very seriously. I don't think that I'm special. I don't think that I'm smarter than anyone else. I don't think that I'm better than anyone else. I think that God has his hand on me and that I was given work to do and that I should be about doing it. So I take it very seriously. And I know I work for the city and I shouldn't talk about religion, but it's 6 o'clock. I can talk about anything I want to. It's at 8 o'clock. I can't mention religion, but I can mention God at 6 o'clock in the morning from my house.
That's right.
For
That's
sure.
right. Yeah, I'm so grateful. And I have to say that your dedication and, my own experience of, I know Lisa Uemoto is also watching, who is your colleague that is our guest here in the Daily African Proverbs tomorrow. And Lisa says that you're amazing, by the way. She's commenting on YouTube and just giving you flowers. But I want to just say thank you, for also supporting me, as an African immigrant here in Seattle. Sometimes I have the same feelings that you're describing that you hear from the Black community about applying for grants. Even as we speak, I have an overwhelming amount of grants that people are sending me, and I don't have the capacity to write all of them. So I'm looking for grant writers. I'm finding ways to engage, because grants are important. They are important, resources, and a lot of the initiatives I lead in Seattle have been supported through grants. And the way that you've created time, out of the normal working hours, and it's just really, really appreciated. But there's the Food Equity Fund that I'll personally be applying for it for the One Vibe African Dinner series that we've been doing since 2016. But I want you to just share with everyone who is listening and also watching our conversation this morning about the current Food Equity Fund. In just a moment, I want to first welcome everyone in the room. I actually see Walter Koga, who is in Nairobi, Kenya, and Anne-Marie and Faline. I think Faline is in Belize. And Brendan, I think Brendan is in Canada. And we have a number of other people on stage who are also going to share their comments in a moment. If you're just joining us, my name is Simon Okello, and I have a special guest with us here today. Her name is Aline Ruth, and she's the, grant manager for the City of Seattle's Department of Neighborhood, who is currently one of the people leading the effort with the food equity grant that is really, really important that you pay attention to. And if you know someone in Seattle, that fits the description that Aline is going to share with us, please make sure you send them this episode of the Daily African Proverb so that they can learn more and also spread the word. So welcome again. And if you're on YouTube, please remember to share your comment with what today's proverb means to you. The proverb we are discussing today is, "He who refuses to obey cannot command." Now, I want to bring back the microphone to the amazing Aline Ruth so that she can just share with us her thoughts about the Food Equity Fund here in Seattle. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm happy to share this experience with you. I will just say one thing. I'm not the program manager. My boss, Daniel Sims, would be surprised to learn that I have taken his job. I'm a project manager. Daniel Sims is the program manager. I didn't tell him that, Daniel. He just said that. But anyway, Lisa Omoto and I have been working since January 1 on developing this food equity fund. And the dollars come from the sweetened beverage tax. If you live in Seattle and you buy Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or any other sweetened beverage, you are taxed on that. And all of that money goes into a pot. So Lisa and I have been working since the 1st of January to come up with a grant program, along with others, to come up with a grant program that puts that money back into the communities that are most impacted. And we do know that Black, Indigenous, people of color, Latinx, seniors, Pacific Islanders, the young people are most impacted by sweetened beverages. First of all, there's a lot of sugar in it. Second of all, we usually come into that space with excuse me, less access to healthy food and to health resources. So when you combine that with eating more sweetened foods and drinking more sweetened beverages, we're just less healthy. We have more diabetes, we have more high blood pressure and those things. So the idea around the Food Equity Fund is that these dollars will be put back out into the community. People can apply for a grant through the Department of Neighborhoods, and they can grow food, they can cook food, they can deliver food, they can have nutrition classes, or they can do a combination of some of those things. And currently, the funding opportunity opened October 1st. It closes November 30th. We've had 3 informational workshops. It's for projects that take between 3 months and 12 months and need no more than $75,000. So you can apply for 5,000, 10, 15, up to 75,000. If you have a bigger project, you are more organized. March 1st, another opportunity will open for projects that are between $80,000 and $150,000, and they can take up to 2 years. So you kind of need to figure out what you want to do and how much money you need. There's no match requirement. There's the largest program in the Department of Neighborhoods is the Neighborhood Matching Fund, where we give you money and you match our money with volunteer labor or cash or other resources. You don't have to do that here. Basically, what you have to do is live in Seattle, and the project activities have to be in Seattle because the tax is only collected in Seattle. So we do know that if you have an activity in Seattle, and let's say you're having a food giveaway or you're cooking food, we do know that people might come from outside of Seattle. We're not standing at the door checking that, but we just know that the activity needs to be in Seattle and the focus needs to be on Seattle residents. If other people come, they come. But we will not allow you to apply if you live in Bellevue or if you're going to have the activity in Federal Way. That is because the way taxes are collected, there's always legislation around it. And there are people who actually go to Tukwila to buy Coca-Cola because they don't want to pay the tax. So the tax is collected in Seattle. The money has to be spent in Seattle. And the Department of Neighborhoods is very unique. Um, we will fund a community group, we'll fund a community council, but we'll also fund what we call an ad hoc group. I live on 38th Avenue South. If 10 of my neighbors wanted to call themselves the 38th Street Food Bank, they could organize and apply for this grant. You don't have to be a 501c3 to apply. You do, however, have to have a 501c3 as a fiscal sponsor because there's two entities. There's the applicant and there's the fiscal sponsor who handles the money, the receipts, and request reimbursement from the city. Some organizations are large enough to be their own fiscal sponsor, and that's fine too. But if you're not, if you're just an ad hoc group and you need a fiscal sponsor, we can point you towards some organizations that might provide that service for you. And the fiscal sponsor, if you're using a fiscal sponsor that's not your own organization, you can pay them up to 10% of the grant amount to do that work, and you can put that in your budget. So right now, as I said, we've had 3 workshops and we've had people attend. I think we had 36 on Monday. We've had about 25 at the other 2. We have evening office hours tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. Wednesday night between 4 and 8. Lisa and I are available between 4 and 5:30. Anyone can log on and ask us questions. If you need one-on-one assistance, you can make an appointment. And right now we're open at 5:30, 6, 6:30, 7, or 7:30. You can get a 30-minute one-on-one. If that time doesn't work for you, you can email us and we'll set up an appointment with you to talk about the fund. We also have a informational PowerPoint that you can watch. It's about 27 minutes and it gives you a lot of information about the program. We've translated that into 3 of the African languages. It's in Spanish. It's also available in Chinese because Lisa speaks Chinese. You will not be able to apply in any language other than English, but the key is you can have the program explained to you in the language that you understand best, which is important because there are always rules and regulations and nuances that may not translate. So we've made an effort to help people in language. And if you need help with your application in language, we have a community liaison program where people speak a variety of languages and we can sit with you one-on-one with their assistance and explain the program to you so that you're able to understand the nuances. And you, as I said, you'll have to apply in English, but at least you understand what you're doing. But I will say this, in my 47 years with the city and my 32 years in the Department of Neighborhoods, this is the easiest grant I have ever seen. And I know because I helped write it. There's no match. It's really very simple. We're not looking at, you don't have to be a professional grant writer. We're not looking at the nuances of subjects and predicates. And, you know, even though I'm an English major, we're not asking you to diagram sentences, any of that. We're asking very simple questions. What is it that you want to do? How much money do you need to do it? And you have to give us a budget. How much for supplies? How much for staff? How much for location if you have to rent a location? Those things. We're going to ask you what you're going to do during COVID. If does it have to be virtual? If you're giving away food, maybe, you know, COVID says that we can't get together. So is it a drive-by? Do you have a space where people can drive by and receive bags of food? We're kind of in the middle of COVID now, so we know a little bit better on how to adjust, but we just want to know what you will do. And we let you know that no matter what you do, if the rules change, you have to change with it because we're part of the city. So we have to observe whatever the governor advises us or demands of us. We have to do that. But it's really, I'm really excited about this opportunity because not only because Lisa and I and my supervisor Daniel and other people in our department put a lot of thought into it, but it's because it's food. And one of the things that we know for sure is that if people are going to change their eating habits, I know this as an African American, as a Black person, if I'm going to change my eating habits, it has to be culturally competent for me. I will never eat Brussels sprouts. Don't care how healthy they are. But I will eat greens. I will eat red beans and rice. Years and years ago, I substituted smoked turkey for pork. My family didn't even know. It tasted the same. You know, we've been drinking 1% milk for years. Kids didn't know until they came to the grocery store with me one day. So health is very important, but food for our community is more than just putting it in the mouth. Sharing a meal with someone is an act of trust. It's very communal. It's how we talk, and it's how we move through the world is through food. And so to the extent that we can make it healthy and culturally relevant, that is the way you change people's perceptions about what's good to eat and what's good for them. So we're really excited about this opportunity for people to come to the table and tell us what they like to eat, how they could eat better, and also tell their community. So I don't know if you want me to keep going or if there's more you want me to say. We're
Oh,
really excited.
I can
Oh,
listen to you
I
for a
want to
long time. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say one more thing. We are very excited about our telephone number. Lisa and our administrative assistant, Esprit, worked on this very hard, along with another woman in our office, Jean Murphy. And the number is 206-727 FOOD, FOOD. We had to, you have no idea what we had to go through to get that phone number. We're so excited. So anyway, this is
Wow.
probably the last work I'm going to do for the city, because I'm probably going to
Yeah.
retire, not this year, but probably at the end of next year or early 2023. So if this is how I go out, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
And I'll be happier if we get a lot of applications on November 30th. It closes November 30th.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you my phone number. It's 206-409-3092. That is my personal cell number. My work cell number is 206-255-8414. And the difference is, if you call me after work hours on my city cell, I will never answer. Call me on my personal cell if it's after 5 o'clock or evenings or weekends. Call me on my personal cell, because I have that with me all the time. And my email is allynn.ruth@seattle.gov. And Lisa, if you're listening, can you put that in the chat for people? If you were able to do it, put our personal information or my personal information on the chat, my email, phone number, and the Food Equity Fund number, so people can have it.
Wow,
But
thank you.
anyway,
Thank you so much. You're very generous with information, and I just admire you as a leader, because many people don't do that. And so that's why I was excited for this conversation, and I'll definitely be applying. I'm excited to continue bringing African chefs together for the One Vibe African Dinner series, which many people who are in this room, are probably just learning about, but we are going to do it, again. We've done it since 2016, and we are going to be applying for this grant in order to continue doing it. And we'll do it virtually too. We'll make it available for people who are not able to, join us in person, because we only have room for 24, because it's an intimate event, that has a very strong history here in Seattle. We've had people from the African and African American communities meeting, and some even meeting their wives now. Some people got married because of that dinner series.
oh,
Yeah, some people have traveled with me to Kenya because of that dinner series. So I'm excited to continue with it. But really, I want you to share with us just briefly. I want to hear first, just to weigh, the temperature of the room, because we have Dr. M.D. Williams with us. We have Makuba, we have Lovelel and Safoa and Dr. Wanda on stage, who are going to share with us their thoughts in brief. But, you share with us how people can stay connected with you. But I just wanted you to just share with us in closing, uh, your final comments once we hear from, Dr. M.D. Williams and Makuba and Lovelel and Safo and Dr. Wanda. Think about, your closing comments that you'll share after they briefly also chime in and give us their thoughts about today's proverb. So Dr. M.D. Williams, tweet size comment on, our conversation with Aline, Ruth, and also your thoughts about the proverb for today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. And listen, I appreciate all this information today. I had to applaud our love, your mother. She's a great woman, because instilling that into y'all's head every day was just phenomenal. Every day. And I have been doing the same thing to my kids. They hate me, and I'm glad they hate me. That means I'm doing my job.
Yes.
They're all grown now, and I still do the same thing. But I had to apply. I'm like, oh my God, I am not the only one that thinks like that. but I just had to say that. I apologize. I just had to say that. But according to the proverb today, who refuses to obey cannot command. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I talk about this all the time. It is about leadership. And to be before you can be a leader, any kind of leader, even lead yourself, you have to learn how to follow. Okay? Her mother was teaching her how to follow, how to obey, because that was teaching her to become the leader she is today. You have to be able to follow before you can lead, even lead yourself. So if you cannot even follow the simple disciplines of your household growing up as a child, I told all my children. Now, all my kids are grown now. Okay. My youngest is 21. That's my son, and my oldest is 28. That's my daughter. She's married. We've got her own kids, own family, and I got a single daughter that's 24. But I let them know all the time, and sometimes they say to me, well, Dad, you were so hard on us. I said, well, I wasn't hard on you. I was teaching you discipline. I was teaching you how to be a leader, because I knew that in this world, growing up as a Black man, Black American, African American, whatever you want to call me, okay, I knew that, like you said, opportunity is never equal. I grew up in the ghettos of Houston, Texas, from a single mom, right? That was an alcoholic. My father, I'm the product of an affair, all right? So, I knew I was born into this world, with stacked against me, but I still overcame. I was born crippled. I was told I would not be able to walk by the time I am 13, wheelchair bound, because I had a rheumatoid arthritis. Born, right? I ran track, and I have track records at my high school that's never been broken yet, and I'm 49 years old, right? I'm walking just fine today. Served in the military, fortunately and unfortunately, served 2 branches. Disabled veteran now, but that's okay. I have pains, aches like everybody do, but anyway. But my point is, to follow, to be a great leader, you must learn first how to follow, right? I'm an educator. I'm a doctoral practitioner, scholar in executive leadership. And when people hear that about me, they're like, so basically you can tell me about my job. I said, no, I cannot tell you anything about your job, because I don't work your job. Now, what I won't mind doing is I won't mind following you around, to learn about your job and having you teach me, right? They're like, well, you're smarter than me. I said, who says that? And then, because everybody has their own specialty. Everybody is their own expert in their own field. But I must say, the great proverb, and I've been teaching this, when I talk about leadership development and when I talk to my clients, and I say the very first thing you must learn how to do is follow. If you're a manager, if you're, sweeping floors, if you're a janitor, oh my God, there's a story I tell all the time, that how this janitor had a great attitude every day for 20-something years, for 30-something years, went in, cleaned bathrooms, did everything every day. And people couldn't understand, the CEO couldn't understand, why this person come in so happy. He said because he was grateful for the little things, and because he did his job so well, he was so disciplined, and he was taught the same concept. If I ever wanted to lead, I must learn how to follow. I must learn how to do, if I got to start at the bottom, I must learn how to do what it takes, and I must do what's necessary and required to be successful. And having discipline and focus and following and learning how to follow is necessary and required to be a leader. And I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate, your passionate comments and also your words of wisdom. Hey Makuba, share with us briefly your thoughts about today's proverb and any comments to the wonderful Aline Ruth, who is my special guest today. And to everyone who is just joining us, we are in the Daily African Proverbs. We've been here for almost 1 hour, so we are heading towards the tail end of our conversation. And Aline, I want you to also share with us the speech at the end. The speech,
Okay.
your mom's speech. I think it's the thread for today's conversation. So think about it. Makuba, the microphone is yours. Briefly share with us your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Simon, for this platform. Every day I listen to African proverbs, I feel I'm going home and touching the grounds of our ancestor, and it's so peaceful. Good morning, everyone. My name is Makuba. And one of the things that sometimes, especially as minorities, we tend to have our mind sight blurred by the things that are happening around us. And when I came to this country, what was interesting at 19, I did not know what the N word meant. And when I met other Black Americans, they looked at me like I was strange because that was not the environment I grew up in. I grew up in an environment where being who I was by the color of my skin was of value. And I was forced to understand that for me to get ahead, education had to be my second God after the real God. And so when I look at this proverb, he who refuses to obey cannot command. In yourself, you have ideas and creative powers that we're sitting on, but you're not obeying them because you're in fear that they will not work, or someone has told you that you're not of value. And if you cannot obey, yesterday we talked about truth in love in our own selves. How are you going to command the creative power that is within so that you can share your treasure with others? So, first, we need to obey what our intuitions and ideas and values are that we bring to this world to share with others. And in that creates us to be a leader in which we can show an example to others. I thank you so much, Ruth, for this fun. I thank you that we are able to share the value of cultural diversity of Africa through this fun and bring healthy nutrition alternatives to so many people. So I appreciate you and I yield my mic. Thank you very much, and everyone have a pleasant day.
Thank you so much, Makuba. And also thank you for all the amazing work you also do. Hey, Lovelel, share with us your brief comments on today's proverb and also any comments to our special guest.
Good morning, everyone that's on the platform. First of all, you must live, learn, obey, observe, and create things in order to master, to becoming a great leader of humanity. It is very important to be a great observer because you must follow first in order to be a great leader. I am so glad to be on this platform. I've always wanted to do things in the world to help out and create for the humanity. First of all, one of my great demanding things that I would like to do in my life is to help out in Africa because we need that. It's very important. And I must yield my mic.
Thank you so much, Lovelel, for your words of wisdom. I'm grateful. Hey, Safoa, share with us your thoughts on today's proverb and also your comments to our special guest. Thank you so much. Safoa was on a phone call just a moment ago, so I'll move to Dr. Wanda and we'll come back to Safoa in just a moment. Dr. Wanda, the microphone is yours.
Good morning. First of all, I had one thing in my mind, and then I heard Makuba speak about how we need to obey those instincts and those dreams that are within us. And I just even back channeled her because it's something that I'm personally doing right now, obeying my ideas and thoughts, entrepreneurship, because I'm a biochemist by training and I'm entrepreneur by passion. And so that was just wonderful. But as far as my interpretation of the proverb, he who refuses to obey cannot command. I just recently took a business administrative class on leadership, and the whole focus of the class had nothing to do with other people. The entire focus of the class had to do with the individual. We took so many assessments about our personality and about the ways that we lead and how we deal with conflict. And what the class was really instructing us that, similar to what Dr. Williams was saying, is that in order to lead, you have to know yourself and you have to lead yourself. So, and in order to be able to lead yourself, you do have to be able to follow a command and follow the chain of command. Because in order to lead other people, you're going to be asking them to follow you. And you can't just do it by force and try to push and coerce everyone to do those type of things. But yeah, that's not the way. In order for you to be a good commander, you need to learn at someone else's feet by obeying and following instructions. And I'm complete.
Thank you, Dr. Wanda. I see that I actually skipped Anne-Marie and Mala, so we'll go to Anne-Marie. Just briefly share your thoughts on today's proverb and any comments on my conversation with Aline Ruth today. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you. Live in Peace, family. I'm Anne Marie. I'm a psychedelic integration mentor based in North Carolina. And when I read, he who refuses to obey cannot command, it makes me think of integrity, and that it's very easy for a lot of us through social media to portray ourselves as a certain way, but then behind the screen on the ground level, are we walking the walk, opposed to just only talking, you know? I've experienced a lot of circumstances with cognitive dissonance where people are portraying themselves to be a certain way. And then when I meet them face to face or I interact with them or build with them entrepreneurially, there's a large lack of integrity, a cognitive dissonance that I've noticed. And it's a good way for me to check myself as well, because I'm not exempt of that type of behavior either. So I feel that if we are going to speak as experts or professionals or as leaders in a certain way, that we have to carry that integrity with us as a way of being, and not from moment to moment, but it has to be at a cellular level. I've enjoyed sitting in your rooms. They've been very helpful and very insightful, and they are automatically and immediately teaching me new ways and perspectives of thinking. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. You're welcome. This is a space for all of us. Let's hear from Mala. Thank you so much. And Mala, feel free to, take a moment, share with us your thoughts on the proverb and also your thoughts on today's conversation with Aline Ruth. Thanks a lot.
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, Eileen Ruth, and everyone in the room. Every time, we come together, there's just so much beauty, so much opportunity to learn, to see how we can collaborate and support one another. And sister, you are just a powerhouse. I am just in awe to share space with you and to listen about your journey. And we'll continue to, keep abreast of all that you have going on. And for the proverb, for me, it's just one, we are all submitted to something, right? We are all children of the divine, whatever avatar, whatever way that we connect to the divine, there's something that has our head, right? And so we may be called into leadership, but who's leading the leader? And so there's a level of submission, there's a level of integrity, there's a level of connectedness and understanding that we are powerful together. right? That, we are a team, we are a collaboration. Like, what is a leader without a army behind them? Just an individual. And so with that power, with that comes great responsibility. And we have to be so mindful not to fall into ego, not to fall into pride, not to fall into self-aggrandizement, but to be clear about our intention, about what we've been called to do, and that we are doing that from a place of obedience, that we're tapping into the wisdom and the technologies around us. So that is what I get from this proverb. And I'm just grateful to tap in with you all and start my day this way. Brother Simon, I can't give you any more flowers, but I'm just going to keep doing what I can to amplify what you are doing with the room, with the podcast on YouTube. You are just a powerful connector, and you are connecting all of us from around the diaspora and the world. So I just thank you. This is Marla, and I'm complete.
Wow, thank you very much, Mal. I'm very, very grateful. Safoa, we lost you for a moment. I want to pass you the microphone, and then from there, we will hear from the amazing Aline, who is going to share with us closing comments and also the speech, Okay, Safoa. Yeah, I think Safua is still on the same phone call that she was on. So, Aline, first I want to thank you for all that you've been doing, in the community. You had comments from people who have probably never met you. But, on behalf of especially the African community here in Seattle and, creatives and people who are trying like myself, thank you. Thank you. And, you told me recently that you're planning to go to Africa for the first time this year, and I wish I was there to film that moment, But share with us briefly about that, and then your closing comments and the speech.
Well, I have always said to my children and my grandchildren that when I die, I want to be cremated and save a little bit of me. And whoever gets there first, just go to Africa and sprinkle a little of me in my homeland. I have always felt that that is where I belong. And so I have an opportunity in December of 2022 to go to South Africa with a group of African Americans. We're going to be in Cape Town, fly to Cape Town for 3 days. Then we're going to take this luxury cruise around the Horn. We'll be in Namibia, we'll be in Mozambique. And that will be my first trip. It will not be my last trip. But I always said when I retired from the city, I was going to take the trip of a lifetime, and that will be it. But I just want to thank you so much for this morning. This has been so inspirational to me. It really has been. And to be able to think of my mother, she passed away 6 years ago. But I believe that when you put into your children or into the world what was put into you, your loved one lives forever. So my mother lives forever because I constantly put into the world what she put into me. And it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing to be here this morning. So if you want me, I have probably a minute left. You want me to give you the speech? Is that?
Oh yes, the speech. The speech is yeah. That's how we are closing today. And so after the speech, I'm not saying anything. We will just wrap up the room. Yeah.
Well, my mother was a maid. She was a nurse in Oklahoma, but there were no black hospitals. So I worked with her side by side. We all had to clean houses and all of that. And I think that's why she gave us a speech. But the speech is every morning, she said, never, ever forget that you belong to the strongest race of people that ever walked the face of this earth. No one has stood what the black man has stood in the heat of the day. And she said, your job, your only job is to advance the ball. I left out the first part and this part. She would be upset with me, but she said millions of black people lived and died without knowing freedom. Millions of black people lived and died without knowing freedom. The Atlantic Ocean is lined with the bones of black people who never survived the Middle Passage. She said that is tragic. But what would be even more tragic is if you did not live your life every day in a way that honored their sacrifice. That is your job. Now go out and advance the ball. And when we would come home every day, she'd say, what did you do to advance the ball? I was 5 years old. I didn't know. But when I was 15, I knew. So I can answer her. I learned chemistry. I did my calculus. I helped someone. So she asked us, she not only gave us the speech, but at the end of every day, she asked us, what did you do to advance the ball? And I ask myself that every day. Tomorrow, probably Lisa will tell you some experiences that we've had, some things that we've done. But I ask myself that every day. What have I done to advance the ball? What have I done to hinder the cause? So I thank the sister who talked about humility and not feeling better than, because I do ask myself that every day before I lay my head on the pillow. I pray and I say, what have I done to hinder the cause? And what can I do about it? What can I do better the next day? So that is the speech. I give it to you. It is yours. Share it with others.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. And if you're joining us on YouTube, first I really want to give you all a shout out. I see Joanne Onyango Obunga, who has been an amazing supporter, who is in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for joining us. I see the Lisa, who is with us in Seattle. Everyone, Mala and Daniel, thank you all for joining us on YouTube. If you're going to watch this later on after the live stream, please leave us with your comment in relation to your interpretation for this proverb. The proverb says, he who refuses to obey cannot command. And then if you're with us on Clubhouse, I want to thank you so much for making the time. And we will see you tomorrow at the same time. Tomorrow, my guest is going to be Aline Ruth's colleague. Her name is Lisa. I have to pronounce your last name correctly, Uamoto. So you have to be there. You have to be there. I'm just so excited that today and tomorrow our theme is going to be really around food justice. So help us spread the word and see you tomorrow. Take good care of yourself. And really, if you know someone in Seattle who needs to take advantage of this opportunity, please let them know. Aline, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
In America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington.